welcome. This is Doc, the Operations Chief. Today I'll be taking you through the basic firearms safety course. Safety first, make sure all weapons are unloaded and there are no rounds in the chamber or nearby it. Key points to remember when handling a firearm. What can I do for me not to have to use a firearm should be the first thing you're thinking. Firearms never solve problems, and the firearm is used only as a last-ditch effort to save your life. You should think about the 4 conditions that must be present for you to engage. 1. Reasonable fear of death or bodily harm. 2. Reluctant participant. 3. No way for you to escape. And 4. No lesser force will do. So these situations are going to change depending upon your situation with others that you may be out with, family, friends, and neighbors. So reasonable fear of death or bodily harm, that's pretty self-evident and clear. If you feel if you're in reasonable death or harm, you're going to probably be elevated to that point of getting close to use deadly force. Reluctant participant, simply meaning the trouble came to you, you did not go looking for it. And no way for you to escape simply means there's no way for you to get away. It could be a different situation if you're with yourself or with members of a family trying to egress a situation. And 4, no lesser force will do. And that's the old adage, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. So we want to remember, what can I do for me not to have to use a firearm should be the first thing you're thinking. In addition to the 4 conditions that must be present to engage, we also want to take a look at the NRA safety rules and remember those. Always keep the firearm pointed in the safest direction. 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. And 3, always keep the firearm unloaded until you're ready to put it into service. And what does putting it into service mean? It means that you're putting that firearm on to protect you, your family, and walk out the door. Or it could be in service, simply sitting next to you in your home. But then again, you want to be responsible and safe if you have young children or those who are untrained with firearms by leaving a firearm loaded around your home. Why do people own firearms? Well, there are several reasons. Collection, recreation, sporting or hunting, competitive shooting, self-defense, and most importantly, it's our constitutional right. We do have to remember using a handgun for self-defense is both an invaluable asset and a life-changing liability. Remember always, what can I do for me not to have to use a firearm? With the average encounter occurring within 5 to 21 feet, 3 shots in less than 5 seconds, most engagements are within less than 10 feet. You must remember your actions from this point forward are key, including the words we speak to others and the conversations that we have. Privileges and serious responsibility with firearms. It is an amazing privilege and serious responsibility to carry a firearm. You owe it to yourself, your family, your friends, and neighbors, and everyone around you to be safe and responsible with your firearms. This means how and where you carry it, how you act, how you speak and behave when carrying a firearm, where you keep it at home, when in use and when it's not in use, how do you store it at home or in transit. How and when do you defend yourself? How does that look in your head or in your mind or in your home? And remember, drugs and alcohol with firearms never mix. Any alcohol voids your permit. Any drugs void your permit. And be careful of the effects of over-the-counter medications and prescriptions. Safety rules. Remember, safety is between your ears and not something you hold in your hands. Do not rely or count on mechanical safeties. They can and will fail. There are no accidental discharges, period. Call it what it is, pure negligence. Remember the 4 universal safety rules. Treat all firearms as if they are loaded. Never let the muzzle cover anything which you're not willing to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on the target. Always be sure of your target and beyond. And again, use the NRA safety rules when handling a firearm. Always keep the firearm pointed in a safe direction. Always keep the finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire, and always keep the fire unloaded until you're ready to use it or put it into service. Giving and receiving of a firearm. Ensure the weapon is unloaded. Keep it pointed in the safest direction and with the action open always so that the receiver can see that the action is clear as well. To perform a proper clearing exercise, you first must remove the ammunition from the chamber and the magazine. Then lock the slide back or open the cylinder if it's a revolver, then visually and physically inspect your firearm to ensure that it is unloaded and clear. For revolvers, open the cylinder. Keep your finger off the trigger pointed straight down the firearm along the slide. Most negligent discharges are contributed not to performing a proper clearing exercise. Hand the weapon so that your partner can grasp the handle, giving him or her the best possible grip of the firearm. For revolvers, place your fingers through the cylinder opening. For semi-automatic pistols, grasp around the slide and the trigger guard. If receiving the firearm, grasp the handle with your fingers straight down the slide and off the trigger. Verbal communication between both parties when handling a firearm is suggested. Person giving the firearm should state the weapon is unloaded and clear. Person receiving the firearm should say the weapon is clear and unloaded. I have control. When handing off a revolver, make sure that you open the cylinder, inspect the cylinder to make sure that it is empty, and then place fingers through the cylinder so that the recipient can grab the grip firmly, sliding through their index finger down the frame of the firearm and not on the trigger. For a semi-automatic pistol, we want to make sure that we inspect the firearm first by locking the slide back, removing the magazine, inspect the chamber to ensure that it is clear. We want to ensure a proper grip when handing off to our recipient, so we're giving them the best piece of real estate for them to grab a hold of. For a revolver, as you can see, the cylinder is loaded. We have brass in the cylinders, or in the cylinder, unloaded, empty chamber, empty cylinder. For a pistol, you see either silver or brass in the chamber. This one is loaded. Here it is unloaded, empty chamber. We have a firm grip. We have the butt pointed towards the recipient, fingers through the cylinder opening. And then we have the recipient's finger down the frame of the trigger. With a semi-automatic pistol, first we want to make sure that we have a firm grip on the firearm, the fingers around the trigger guard, the finger pointed down the frame and off the trigger, and the heel of the firearm pointed towards the recipient. Additional safety considerations. If you do not know how to operate a firearm, ask or read the owner's manual. Be sure your firearm is safe to operate. Know how to use your firearm safely. Always wear ear and eye protection every time when shooting. Remember that removing the magazine from a firearm may not remove all of the cartridges. Many firearms can discharge or fire without the magazine in place. Never depend on safeties or decocking mechanisms. Mechanical devices can and will fail. Dry firing or firing a firearm without a round in the chamber can damage some firearms. You will know this in your owner's manual. Be sure the barrel and the action are clear of obstructions. Never shoot at a hard target or flat surface, including water. Know and observe all range rules and clean your firearm promptly after every use. Proper shooting fundamentals. A proper shooting stance should be taking an offensive position. Do not forget you are delivering energy. Lean into the engagement or target with a slight bend at the knees and forward at the waist. The isosceles stance. When performing the isosceles stance correctly, your body is in position square to the target with a slight bend in the knees and naturally demonstrate an isosceles triangle. Your body is in an optimal position to absorb recoil, and it is the most effective for defensive shooting. Next, we'll talk about proper grips. A proper grip is one of the most important basic shooting fundamentals that is commonly overlooked. Many shooters can easily improve their shooting by consistently performing the proper grip. Make sure that your thumbs are on the same side of the slide of the firearm and not interfering with your slide. Most of the pressure of the grip should come from the bone in your strong thumb, followed by your middle finger and the ring finger. Target acquisition. Identify center mass of the target offered. During a lethal confrontation, you will need to aim for the largest mass to ensure the best odds of hitting the target. Never fire a warning shot and never shoot to wound. You are not that good and you won't be able to do it. Center mass is the objective. And remember, you own that projectile and you are responsible for everything that it hits. Proper sight alignment is paramount when distance shooting is your objective. There is no maximum distance when it comes to a legal shoot as long as all elements are present to threaten or use lethal force. It is strongly encouraged to become an expert at varying distances ranging from 5 to 20 yards. If your goal is to carry a firearm for close personal protection, this is a must. With the average shooting being 21 feet, this is one of the most effective ways of using your firearm in self-defense. Over half defensive shooting scenarios are within 5 feet. Majority of shootings are over within 3 seconds. Sight shooting is the relationship between the front and rear sight in view of the target. Point shooting is more real-world and realistic when it comes to self-defense. Simply identify your target with both eyes open as you point your weapon to the target and engage. Shoot with both eyes open, concentrating on the front sight. Place the front sight on the target where you want the rounds to impact, aim small, and miss small. Trigger control. Trigger control is every bit as important as grip. To ensure you're properly manipulating the trigger, use the pad and not the joint. That's too much leverage, and we don't want leverage, we want finesse. With constant even pressure, pull the trigger straight back through the brake to the back wall. Stay on the trigger all the way to the reset. The reset happens after you press the trigger and release slowly out. Keep your finger on the trigger while you're on target, off trigger. There are various types of handguns. Illustrated here, we have a revolver. We also have a 1911 illustrated, which is single action, and then we also have a double action firearm in the right-hand slide. Single and double action. Single action revolver. The trigger performs a single action, releasing the hammer. The hammer must be manually cocked for each shot. Double action revolver. The trigger performs two tasks, both cocking and releasing the hammer. Most double action revolvers can also be fired in single action mode. Single action semi-auto. Each pull of the trigger performs a single action releasing the hammer. The hammer must be manually cocked for the first shot. Traditional double action semi-auto. The initial long or heavy trigger pull both cocks and releases the hammer. Each subsequent shot then is fired in single action mode. Double action only semi-auto. Each pull of the trigger both cocks and releases the hammer, as with double action revolver. There are various ammunition types, but for what we're talking about engagement and for practice shooting, we want to look at the semi-jacketed hollow point for self-defense, the jacketed hollow point for self-defense, and those rounds only. Lastly, your training round should be a full metal jacket. Cartridge identification. Proper cartridge identification is necessary to ensure the correct ammunition is loaded in the pistol. Some cartridges have more than one designation. 9mm para, 9mm Luger, 9x19mm, 45 auto, 45 ACP, 45 GAP. The cartridge designation is marked on the side of the pistol. This is stamped on the end of the cartridge casing and a head stamp. You can also find it on the ammunition box, on the printed ammunition factory box. Caliber markings are found on the ammunition and on the boxes. Each firearm is chambered for a specific caliber and mark. Semi-autos are on the chamber, revolvers are on the barrel. Plus P and Plus P Plus ammunition cannot be used in every firearm. Make sure you consult your owner's manual or ask an expert. Make sure the firearm is chambered. Make sure the firearm can fire the ammunition you've chosen. If unsure, review your instruction manual or contact the manufacturer. Personal protection ammunition should always be jacketed hollow points, factory loaded. No target and no hand-loaded ammunition for personal protection or carrying on the street. Nothing except new factory loaded defensive hollow points for carrying on the street. No more than 6 months old. Make sure that you're neat and organized with your ammunition. Never mix ammunition or put in a box that is not appropriately marked. Keep the original factory box or carton for self-defense ammunition. You may need it in a legal case. Again, be neat and organized. Keep it in a cool, dry area. Avoid exposure to water, solvents, petroleum products, including gun oil, bore cleaner, and other chemicals. What is reasonable force? Reasonable force is defined as only the force necessary to gain control of the situation or to create an escape. Reasonable force is always based on the actions of the offender. Reasonable force may or may not be lethal. Always ask yourself, what can you do for yourself to de-escalate the situation? Ethics continued. You will be held to a higher standard of what is considered acceptable behavior while armed. Remember, any conflict that you are in is an armed confrontation when wearing a firearm. Every time you put a firearm on, you must be prepared to take life-changing decisions and prepare for possible consequences. You are not crime fighters, you're not police or junior G-men. One of the first questions law enforcement will ask you if you're involved in a conflict is, why are you here and why did you bring a firearm? What steps have you taken to avoid the confrontation? Carrying a firearm is for self-preservation only. It is never acceptable to threaten or use lethal force to protect your personal property, period. Basic tactics. When you have chosen to carry a firearm for personal protection, you need to have a basic understanding of the tactics you might need. Distance further from the adversary or threat, the safer you will be. What is cover? Cover is anything between you and the adversary or threat that makes it harder for them to get you, but proper cover protects you from bullets. Mental preparation. Planning, whether at home, in your car, or on the streets, make sure you have a plan, just in case. Develop a backup plan for the first one does fail. Murphy's Law, it will and can fail. Exit strategy, always have a way out. Whenever you enter into a facility, public place, always know where the exits are, always have a way out. Where are the doors? Where are the exits? How can I escape? Where can I run for help? Planning also takes into mental preparation, having a mindset. Never give up, ever. Always prevail. Try to control the encounter, the confrontation, the escalation or de-escalation of arguments. There may be possible injuries that will occur during an incident. Don't quit. Question to ask yourself, am I capable of taking a human life to save my own or that of my family? Does my religion or my moral convictions allow me to take a human life? What have I done in this situation to de-escalate or remove myself from the situation? Mental training, visualize your target and the event and what will it look like after it's gone down. In a defensive mindset, we want to take a look at the color codes of awareness. This was developed by Colonel Jeff Cooper. There's white, yellow, orange, and red. In condition white, you're unaware of what's going on around you. You don't think anything will happen, such as when you're sleeping, watching TV, reading, daydreaming, on your phone, earbuds in. You proceed with life's problems. It's the condition most victims are in, and this is the condition most criminals love to see you in. Condition yellow, you're aware of your surroundings, you're taking notice of things that are around you that are out of place, but this is the condition we want to have everybody in, condition yellow. In condition yellow, you're aware of your surroundings. It is the condition you should be in at all times when you're in public. You're aware of what's happening in the immediate vicinity. You proceed with caution. You're not being paranoid or overreactive. You're just being aware of what's going on around you. You keep an eye out for potential threats and their sources. In condition orange, you have identified specific threats or a threat. This is a heightened state of awareness. You realize something is wrong. There's a danger to you or others. You make a plan on how to react. You decide on a trigger that will move you to take necessary action. You may begin to verbally command, such as stop, stay away, get back, I'm armed. In condition red, action is imminent. As soon as the threat is apparent, you make your move. You begin to work your plan. Do not panic. Remain calm and think. Your training will take over if you have had training. Anyone contemplating including a firearm in their personal protection plan must consider the following questions. Am I prepared to take the life of another human being to save my own or someone else's life? Do my personal morals permit me to take the life of another in self-defense? Am I prepared to tolerate the judgment of my family, friends, neighbors, coworkers if I must defend myself with possible force? Am I prepared to face the legal ramifications of my actions, both civil and criminal? If you cannot answer yes to each of these questions, you should not be carrying a firearm for personal protection. There are 5 possible encounters to a situation. Fight, only if necessary. Flight, if it's reasonable to escape. Freeze, that's generally what's going to happen. It's involuntary and most likely when surprised. Posture, this may avoid the encounter. You can give some type of a mean look. And then lastly, submit, which we never want to do. During a lethal conflict, you're going to revert to your lowest level of training. It is imperative that you become a professional with your firearm if you intend to carry it for personal protection. You will fight like you train in your primary fight zone. And remember this, a well-rehearsed plan executed with extreme violence gives you the best chance of survival. Effects of a lethal conflict. There will be psychological reactions to an encounter. You're going to have loss of fine motor skills, so you want to practice those skills. Tunnel vision, this is very dangerous. Keep looking around you. Our vision narrows down when in an encounter. Auditory exclusion, this is when you lose your hearing, or it's harder to hear in a situation, so you need to shout your commands. Time dilation, where time goes slower or faster. You'll likely have an adrenaline dump, and you'll shake uncontrollably. This does make shooting very difficult, so you do need to practice. The continued effects of a lethal conflict. You, the victim, will most likely experience physiological reactions, emotional trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, shock decompression, isolation, fear, bewilderment. And if you do not struggle with this on a spiritual level, there are some questions that need to be asked. Personal preparation in the home. Visualization is very important. It is the formation of a mental image or situation or activity. It should be used to imagine different defensive scenarios, such as, what if a stranger appears in my window? What if I hear someone trying to force open a locked door or doors? What if a stranger is at the door suddenly produces a knife, a bat, or a firearm? What if I find the door open to my house upon arriving home? What if you're approached by multiple individuals in an uncomfortable setting? What if? Developing a personal protection lifestyle. If you are concerned with personal protection, you must develop a plan to meet your specific needs that fit your style. Such a plan should take into consideration the following: your personal characteristics, your habits and current lifestyle, your skills and willingness to train, your physical capabilities and limitations, your environment and geographic location. In addition, your family situation. Make sure everyone in the house knows the plan that you have, and make sure everyone in the home knows the plan. Practice that plan. Conduct a drill. Practice is key, as it develops a routine so you react to a situation without thinking. Ensure everyone in an affected area participates in the drill. Do not go looking for intruders. This is very dangerous. If this happens in your home or business, just hunker down and we'll let for the police do what they're trained to do. The threat or use of lethal force. Verbal warnings are always encouraged. Reasonable force is the amount of force necessary to stop the attack or gain control of the situation. And remember, always base the actions on the actions of the offender. Your chain of defense. All four conditions must be present at the time of the threat or using lethal force. If at any time one condition is not present, your right to threaten or use lethal force is no longer valid. Reasonable fear of death, reluctant participant, no way to escape, and then lastly, no lesser force will do. The unavoidable confrontation. This is third-party intervention. This is a slippery slope, folks, and do not get involved if you can. You may threaten to use lethal force on behalf of another without their permission, as long as you know all four conditions are present the entire time you are threatening or using lethal force. As I mentioned, this can be a slippery slope. It is important to make sure you know the whole story before getting involved. Things could go sideways very quick. Common questions to ask yourself: how fast will it happen? Well, we talked, it's going to happen within 5 and 20 seconds. How violent will it be? Well, there's going to be rounds going off, so it's going to be pretty violent. Don't be caught by surprise. Always be aware of your surroundings. Remember that time equals distance, and that the 4 levels of awareness should come into play. Never catch yourself in white. Always be in yellow, and maybe a little bit of a combination of orange as well. And then also red. Last thing to remember is action is always faster than reaction, and why it's important to have a plan. If you must shoot, how long do you keep shooting? When do you stop? You stop when the threat ceases. You're not trying to kill the attacker, you're trying to stop the threat. That may sound the same to you, but I assure you it does not sound the same to a jury. Do not expect it to look like it does in the movies. It will most likely take several shots to stop your attacker. Missed shots, distractions, and shaking make it hard to shoot. One shot rarely stops a person. Drugs and alcohol may anesthetize the attacker. Do not try to spot hits on the attacker. You will not likely be able to see where the bullets are hitting. Keep your focus on the front sight while you're shooting. Be aware that you may be injured or even shot during the encounter. Keep fighting. Just as one bullet probably won't kill your attacker, one bullet probably won't kill you either. Keep fighting. If your attacker is shot and goes down, don't assume the fight is over. Be careful, prepared to take action. He or she may have accomplices. There may be more than one intruder or attacker. Look around quickly. Search, assess. Remember, you may have tunnel vision. If you have subdued your attacker, he or she has surrendered, keep your distance. He or she is potentially still dangerous. Do not attempt to restrain him or her. No cuffs, ropes, ties, or what have you. Do not let them approach you. Set your limit. If at any time he or she tries to escape, stay out of the way and let him or her egress. Be a good witness. The further away he or she gets, the safer you are. If he or she remains with you, shout your commands to him or her. Get down, on the floor, face down, arms straight, palms out, legs crossed, and feet up in the air. Keep your gun at low ready and off target until police arrive. Do not talk to your attacker or let him or her talk to you. Do not point your firearm at him or her any longer unless he or she attempts to approach you. The first thing to do when a threat has ceased is call 911 if somebody has not done that already. On 911, tell them your location and get off the phone. They will arrive faster if you're off the phone. Do not tamper with any evidence. Do not touch anything. Stay put. Do not leave the scene. Now, when the police arrive, this is a very delicate situation. They don't know what has happened or who is involved. There were firearms involved in this situation. They are concerned for their own safety first and foremost. When the police arrive, do exactly as they say. Move slowly. Keep your hands in front of you and in plain sight at all times. Remember, anything in your hands can and will kill. If possible, don't be holding your firearm when they arrive. Tell them what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. Listen to their commands. How can you be expected to be treated by police when they arrive? Most likely as a criminal. You'll be detained, you'll be interviewed, arrested, and jail may occur. Do not talk to the police at this time. Speak with your attorney. You will cooperate 100% once you've had a chance to speak to your attorney. Remember, it's the policeman's job. They're going to collect evidence for the prosecuting attorney who prosecutes you. This is your Fifth Amendment right. Take advantage of it. Do not talk to the police at this time. The emotional aftermath. You're going to have elation, repulsion, remorse, post-traumatic shock, counseling, most definitely you're going to need. And you'll be in a condition, or you will not be in a condition, to answer any questions with clarity and accuracy. The legal aftermath. You're betting a lot of money and your freedom that the jury is going to see it the same way you did while being assaulted. This is not a safe bet. These are conservative numbers. A criminal action grand jury, 50,000, probably closer to 75 or 100. Civil action lawsuit against the family members, 50,000, again, probably pretty light. That's just your legal fees if you win. What can I do for me not to have to use a firearm should be the first thing you're thinking as you walk out the door or use a firearm for personal protection. Firearms never solve problems. The firearm is used only as a last-ditch effort to save your life. Remember the 4 conditions that must be present: reasonable fear of death, reluctant participant, no way to escape, and no lesser force will do. Remember what I can do for me not to have to use a firearm. Also, we want to remember the NRA safety rules. Always keep your firearm pointed in the safest direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. And lastly, always keep the firearm unloaded until you're ready to put it into service. This is Doc. Really appreciate you all taking time to watch this video and get some information. Maybe a refresher for some, maybe a little bit boring for others, but we appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much.